Good afternoon and welcome to session 3. If you've been enjoying this wonderful day of learning, you can support our adopted charity by going to the EdCollab site and finding out how you can donate to No Kid Hungry. Session 3 is with Joseph Teague, and we're going to be exploring golden words and golden lines, adding vocabulary and author's craft study into independent reading and writing for grades 3 through 8. So Joseph Teague is a national board early adolescence English language arts teacher. He's currently teaching and living in Doha, Qatar with his wife and children. Today, if you're on Twitter, you can share your learning using the hashtag #TheEdCollabGathering, all one word, space, and hashtag 8 for this session. So with no further ado, let's welcome Joseph Teague to the EdCollab Gathering.
Hi, I'm Joseph. Thank you for coming to join to this session. And just a little bit of my own shout outs. Thank you to Jessica behind the scenes are helping me out. And for all of you who are out there, wherever you are, know that I'm a teacher too. And tomorrow I have some of the students in the work you're about to see. I'm going to go see them tomorrow. And so my hope is that the work that you're about to see is really some kind of action work and work that you can take and use in your classrooms tomorrow or on Monday for some of you. And also just kind of as a thank you, I remember going to TC and sitting in the way back of the room and watching Christopher Lehman talk about eye searching and thought, oh man, that's so great how that's going on. And being lucky enough to see Kate Roberts and making to the sessions and hearing her talk and learning from her. And so it's possible. Know that it's possible for you. You got that idea and you got something you want to share and you think, well, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe I should. I'm here to tell you that you really should, that the EdCollab is a great place to learn and to share what you're doing. And so it's in that spirit that I'll begin. So let me make sure I get this right and then talk about what we're here for. So again, this session is about calling them golden words and golden lines, adding vocab and author's craft study. And really it is focusing on the words in the books that your students are choosing and focusing on larger than that, the lines our students are choosing. And again, to borrow a line from Kate Roberts, whose session many of you just saw, that she said, grammar gives you the power to say the things you want to say. And I think that's true for vocabulary and grammar as well, that this idea that by exploring these words and exploring these lines, that our students will be better readers and they'll be better writers, and will tap into the natural curiosity that they have about the words that they look at and the lines that they choose. And so that's the hope. I'm going to talk about some of the background in just a minute, but the hope is that we really are, that this will empower your students to construct stronger sentences and to learn more words and to learn how words have different shades of meaning, and that precise language is a way to empower themselves to say exactly what it is they want to say and to bring across the meaning and bring across to set the mood and to bring the readers along with them in the journey from their heart to their mind. And so let's go back to the session here. So there we go. So a little bit of background. And maybe this is true for you, I struggled with this building of vocabulary and grammar instruction in workshop. I didn't want to do books. I didn't want to do worksheets. I didn't really want to do it on a website. But I wanted to have this place for it. I think, again, there's a place to learn about how words constructed and what a verb is and what a noun is and how to make that an authentic part of the instruction that our students do, the learning that they do. So it really should come from the books that they've read And so that was one part of it. That was one part of the background for me. Also, I knew the books were, like I said, I wanted books to be great mentors for students, for characters and themes, but also for sentence construction. I wanted to weave Greek and Latin instruction into the workshop, and you'll hear me talk a little bit more a little later about Greek and Latin. And again, I know for me, for some of you, maybe it was true for me that, it was a list of words you had to memorize, and they were separated from the words that I was reading about, the words I use in my everyday life, but they weren't really. And so I wanted, if it's true, and I believe it is, there's a way to empower these students and give them more words and ways to learn about more words. And some Greek and Latin instruction woven into this inquiry, woven into this workshop is a way to help them learn more. I wanted to approach language foundation standards in a low stress way. Multiple opportunities for conferences about author's craft and language, and hopefully that'll come up now and again, the ways to build in a quick little conversation with a student about a line, or to build in a quick conversation about a verb or a noun, or even for a way to students to say, I really like this book because of this line. I really like this book because of this word, or look at this word and how they were using it. So there's lots of these mini opportunities for students to share the books that they love, but on this real, molecular level, for lack of a better word, really on the, word by word and sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase. And the last one, without getting too language arts teachery on you, I want students to linger over and savor words and lines in the books that they are reading. And that's true. And I think, we'll talk a little bit later about the standards, and we'll talk about how to assess it. But my hope from all of this is that, just like when they hear a good joke, and just like when they a line from their favorite lyric, that authors poured over these words and poured over these phrases. And so, yes, the words and the phrases are a vehicle to get to, understanding character and theme, and that is true, and to see through these different lenses. But also the words themselves matter. That word versus this other word, or that phrase versus that other phrase, and the author cobbled together this building, brick by brick. And so let's take a moment to look at the bricks, and take a moment to look at the kind of the architecture of the way it is built. So how will our time here work? It will work like this. I'm getting better at these slides. So again, we're going to talk about, there's really two different parts. One part is talking about golden lines. What are they? Collection, focus words. How do you assess this? How would I assess this in my own classroom? Remember, like you, sometimes I sit in a great PD, I think, oh, this is great, but how am I going to assess this thing? And so that's a chance for that. And then I prefer not to call them what could go wrong. So I poured for a long time over, I don't want to call them how could they go wrong, so I'm going to call them coaching opportunities. So it's coaching opportunities, not this is going to be a problem. But if something happens, and this is the things that have happened to me, what you can do. And then we'll switch to golden lines. What are those? And the cycles of collecting those words and then focusing on them, from moving to thinking like a reader, really what's in your heart, to thinking like a writer, what's in your head. And that's my shout out to Kylie Beers. I hope wherever you are that you're getting better soon. And then to how would you assess this, and then coaching opportunities again. So what could go wrong, and what has gone wrong for me, and how would I then coach my way out of this? And ideally, that in this work, it ends up being a cycle where they go from collecting these words and lines to culling down the list of words and lines, to focusing on certain words and lines, and then sharing those words and lines. So after the initial teaching of it, students will get into the cycle of collecting, culling, focusing, sharing, and ideally it begins to run as a system. This another part of the workshop that you do, another part of class that you do. And so by the time you get a few cycles in, they're on the lookout for these words. They're on the lookout for these lines. They know they want to share. They know they're thinking about the meaning. And when they're talking with you, they're talking about the word they use, or talking about this phrase that they use. So that's that's how this is, that's ideally how it works. And again, this is EdCollab 8, and there's my, oh, you can't see it, you can see me, how about that? There's EdCollab 8, and there's my Twitter, Mr. J. Teague. And so if you have a question for me at any of these things, a question for me, just hit me up and I'll write you back. And if you want me to share some part with you, or you can't quite see the rubric when we get to it, let me know and I will. So this is an example that I've used in class for a way to describe this, or the teaching point. And it's just when you discover a line, a sentence or two that makes you stand up and take notice, write it in your read writer's notebook. Make sure you copy the punctuation correctly. That will come up because readers improve their craft by studying and using mentor text. For golden words, when you discover new and interesting words in your book, and really it's new and or interesting. And I'll mention this again, but the words don't have to be new vocabulary words. They can be words that they know and just are curious about. We really want to pull away we're just learning new words for the sake of new words. Part of this transferring is that I take a word I already know something about, and I'm going to dig deeper and learn more about that word. So when you discover new and or interesting words in your book, take notice and note them in your notebook. Readers use their books to strengthen their vocabulary. So what you see now is an example of one of my students' notebooks and what they wrote down. And what I had them do, I'll tell you, I tried this 2 different ways. And one way, I had lots of examples from previous years. I have my student notebooks here. And so I would go through, I chose lots of different notebooks from previous years, and I put all the notebooks around, I let them pour through it, and it took a better part of 20, 30 minutes. And I just left it open. What's a golden line and what's a golden word? And they got to it. And then I thought, well, that took a long time. So I just did it once and gave them 5 minutes, and they came up with the same thing, because I feel like it's pretty intuitive thing that they look at this line, they look at this example, and they think, oh, golden words are these keywords. Golden words are new words, and golden lines are these words that can help them instruct us as important. And so this is what came up with 5 minutes. So I say that to say that you could focus on it for 20 minutes or focus on it for 5 minutes. The inquiry works either way, but they'll get to the idea of, oh, these words are words in my book that are important, and these lines are lines that matter to me, because I think and I believe that on some level they're curious about the words in their book, and I know they are, and they're curious about the lines in their book. So that's 2 ways to do this, and either way can work for you. And I know when I do this again next year, I would focus on the shorter version. So this is go into part 1 of the words. This is an example of a student's notebook, and you see the golden words there on the left side. You see the lines on the right side, which is the second half of our talk. But on the left side, you see the words. And a few teacher tips for this. I have them post the minimum. I post on my board the minimum collection word count. So I tell them they should be collecting 1 to 2 words every day that we're reading, even if they have more than the minimum word count. So let's say on day 1, you have a really industrious student who decides that she wants to collect 20 words for her notebook. And you say, well, that's great. And I'm glad you love the word so much. Tomorrow, you're still going to add 1 word to your list. And so the idea is that we're constantly on the lookout for these new words. And again, this assumes that students have some reading time in their classroom. And I'm sure that for many of you, no matter what grade you're in, that the students will have time for independent reading time and independent reading books. And so the stage 1 again is they are looking at their books and just noting 1 or 2 words every day. And to keep them honest and to keep myself honest, really, I just put down, today the count is 10 words. Today the count is 11 words. So that's part 1. And then every so often, I'm going to go back to this list. Every so often, I would have them cut down that list. And I have them cut down that list again, because I'll put my list up here. If you have, let's say a student, they collect 30 words and they think, okay, I'll just collect a word here, collect a word there. He's not really going to check. I say, okay, well, after a couple of weeks, their list goes down to 20. And so they have to make some decisions on how golden that word really is, or how much they really want to pay attention attention to that word. And so just a way of prioritizing some words over others, and just a way to help them to think about not every word is going to be worth the extra, not worth, it's going to warrant the extra time that they're going to put in to this work, to the goal, to the focus work. So that either way can work. But let me go back to me. So you'll just have to decide on when to cut down the list. Usually I have them get to about 10 words before you do the next part. And once they get to 20 words, let's say that's 20 different classes or 10 different classes, how you decide to structure it, then I have them cut the list down by 5, let's say. And you see students kind of, I don't know whether they should do this word or do that word, and cut the list down. A couple things too, and it's a way to, this is also a way to sneak in words that they like. And so choose your favorite word for your last 10 and share with your partner about why you like that word. So moving on. This next part is then, let's say they've chosen a word. And what you see here is an example for a word that a student chose. And this does assume that students have internet access, and this does assume whether it's on an iPad or on a computer, they can get to words and they can search the definitions. And so know that since this isn't an everyday word thing, an everyday looking up thing, that it could be that some students are online and some students are still reading. So I don't think that it helps if students, if you're a one-to-one school, it helps that you maybe have an iPad cart and that you can check out. But I know that's not true for everyone. So I think structuring it so that some students can get online at certain times can help with this. So one way around this is to structure different times for different people to be focusing where everyone else is doing their reading time. So this student, they chose the word lurched. And so we typed in lurched, and lo and behold, it came that lurch comes up, not lurched. And they see that lurched is their past tense of the verb and word lurch. And that's a great way to talk then about word parts and to talk about prefixes and suffixes. And so this is the part when I talk about a way to focus on certain word parts. Maybe it's the S mixed words plural, or the shun, or the eyes. And just a quick Google search of Greek and Latin for 3rd grade, or Greek and Latin for 4th grade can get you these different words lists or word parts they can use. The idea is that now that the word can be, we can do a quick conference about the word and a quick conference about the different word part and how these certain word parts are added on to these words and can change the meaning of them. So if I go back to the word lurched here, I see, so for her, we talked about lurch. She searched lurch and did a quick Google search for lurch and defined. That's all we really needed. And then to come up with lurch, we pull out the ed and use it as a different. I mean, the affix to show how that makes the words past tense. And then she sees the definition there. She won't write down the definition. That's one big takeaway, that I wouldn't make students write down the definition because they can see the definition right there in the book. They see the definition online. It really is, what are they going to do with it? And we'll see what they're going to do with it in just a moment. So, your student has these words. They've cut down the list. They've chosen a word. They have found the word part. They've got it, and they're ready to move on. So what the work looks like is, go to the next screen, is like this. So what you're seeing now is an example of the focus word and what that looks like. So you see at the very top, the student wrote the word lurch. They wrote down the part of speech. That was a verb. Probably would have been down past, they probably should have been down past participle, but she wrote down verb. You see the suffix, that's ed. And then we have the base word, lurch. So now we're ready to go. The next thing in that Google search, and if you do a search for most words, there's a little arrow that says origins. You click on it, and we see that lurch is a late 17th century word, and it's of unknown origin. Most of the time, we'll find words that will come from Greek and Latin. So that's a great place to talk about how these words have a home and how Not every word in the English language is come from Greek language. There's a lot of Old English in there, French, and from languages from all over the world, really. So, but this is a great way to show that curiosity, or to feed into that curiosity about the different words. Okay, and so then we go on to synonyms. And so one way to look at this, I go back here. Let's see if I want to go back here. One way is that the student has gone and looked at the word, a search for the origin, and now they see these words here. And the nice part about searching for the words on Google is that all these words are hyperlinked. All the synonyms are hyperlinked. And so let's say I'm going to click on one of the synonyms, and then you get to sway. And so we click on sway, and then let's see a definition of lurch and see a definition of sway. And so the next step here is to say how the two words are similar but not the same. And so to explain the relationship between the two words, explain how one word is a kind of another word, or how one word is a version of the word, or one word, the intent of one word is different. So thinking about the relationships between these words, between synonymous words, is a great way that I found to conference into, well, what does it mean that a word is synonymous, and why can't you just replace one word for the other one? Because of your intent, because of the connotation that you want to bring forth from the reader. So this is a great place to talk about connotation and when you would use it. Just the other day, I was talking with a student about rushing versus bustling, and that conversation wouldn't have come up unless she had come to me with this word that meant something to her from the book that had meant something to her. So it was a good place to talk about meaning and how she could use different ones depending on what kind of meaning she wanted to get from what kind of meaning she wanted our audience to get from her book. So we're back here, and at the very bottom of the page here, you see this student's drawing of lurch. And so, like I said before, the student would never write down the definition of the word. The closest that the student will get is this detailed drawing of the definition of the word. And I tell them, I usually show them a stick figure that I've drawn and say, you can do it better than that. It's not meant to be the most detailed artistic drawing ever, but some students really want to pour their work into this, show their meaning. But instead, it's just enough to show the understanding of the word, or to should help them picture the word in their mind so that someone else can picture the word as well. And so the golden word, then the focus word, has these parts to it, from the word to the word part, to the origin, to how similar to another word, because. So it's similar to blank because, but they are not the same because, and that's the structure that I give them. And then a detailed drawing at the end, and detailed, I'm going to put in air quotes, because detailed, I just tell them about attention to detail then, and that how you show you care about something by putting more detail into it. And that could be extra color, or that could be a little extra detail. So that's what it would look like on the page. And again, this is in the cycle of going from focusing on a word, to collecting words, to focusing on certain words, to culling down a list, to focusing on certain words, to then sharing those words with other people. So next would be, how am I going to assess this? Like, it's all great, Joseph, but how are you going to, I got to attach a grade to this thing. So let's go back. And I'll just walk you through the standards. There we go. And so this is just another example. Before I forget, a little bit of housekeeping that I do, that I have them usually put the date on it. I have them put which word this is on their golden word list. This is a quick way for me to see, oh, I see you have 8 words on your golden word list, and this is the first word on that list. So that's just a little teacher tip, the way of housekeeping, so that I'm not looking at all the notebooks. I can just eyeball this focus word, and then I can see how many words they have on the list. And that can maybe a conference on adding words to your list, or a conference on, you have all these great words, let's talk about cutting your list down. So that's just another way to show the drawing. I liked how she drew manipulate there. So standards-wise, there are 3 here, and rather than going into them with you, you can see them there on the screen. Their vocabulary acquisition and use, and so these are going to be vocabulary acquisition and use assessment that I do. And again, there's always seemed to be a struggle how to put that into the work. I didn't want to have it be this part of the writing where I seem to get this weight with all the other work I was teaching into about structure and elaboration. So it was a way to focus on these words and focus on the language apart from the writing that they were doing. And so those are the 3, 7.4, 7.5, 6 in this. We have the acquisition and use standards. And so there's a rubric, and you can see how I've gone from, if you look at the proficient part, I'm assuming that they're going to do this well. I'm assuming they're curious about these lines, and the rubric does that. The rubric assumes here that they are doing this good work and looking at these lines. I don't want to catch them or do a gotcha with this work. And so it's a pretty easy rubric. It walks them into proficient work and advanced work. And again, if you want to your own copy of this or you want to see it, please let me know, and I'll be happy to share it with you, and editable link so you can do with it as you will. So what could go wrong, right? Not so much problems, but coaching opportunities. And I've mentioned them a little bit. So let me just go into a few big ones here. One big one is they have lots of words on day 1. So that's a great way to cull down, use the conferences about culling down the list. What if they don't have any words? That can happen sometimes, that especially early on where they're not just adding the words to their list. And by removing, what I do, by removing the pressure of, it doesn't have to be a new word, it just has a word that you care about. You've read all of these words, just choose one that is meaningful to you. You chose this book. You now choose the second step of choosing a word that you care about. And so, again, I'm assuming they're going to be curious, because they are. Assuming that they care about their books, because they do. And so when I go to them and talk about having lots of words or not having enough words, then I'm going to assume positive intent and assume that it's just they forgot. And I can really coach into how to add words, or how to cut down the list, or even you just read for 5 minutes. Let's look at the line together. That looks pretty good. Choose that one. Okay, so those are the big ones that can go on. One other small one, really quickly, is about, let's say the word has no synonym. And a quick story about that is I had a student. She chose mead horn, like mead horn that you would, like, Vikings would drink out of, mead horn, and it didn't have a synonym for it because it's a very specific thing. And so we had to look up what a mead horn was and talk about it, and then she said, okay, now I know. And so sometimes the words won't fall into this even line like we want them to. But still, the heart of it is you're taking students who are curious about these words, you're coaching into or teaching into that curiosity and helping them transfer and take that word and make it their own. So that's golden words for me. Okay, halfway there. Golden lines. This is a picture of my door that I took on Thursday. Quick thing, where I live, my part of the world, the work week is from Sunday to Thursday. So sometimes you hear me say Thursday, really just think it's the end of the week. And so this is a list of the golden lines that my students have, and this would be part of the sharing part. And what I like about the golden lines is that, sometimes on Thursday there'll be students who are just lingering outside my door, who are looking at these lines. And at first, yes, they were looking for the lines that they had written, but then they paused and looked at this other line. They paused and looked at this other line. They thought, oh, that's a good book. Maybe I can read that book. Or maybe, oh, I see that she's reading that book. I'll make sure I go talk to her about the book that I was reading, and but the line that the book is in. So I'll mention this a few times, but golden lines are a way to have these really short conversations, conferences about the books that they're reading, and how to share on a structural level the books that they love reading. And just like in a great song, or just like in a great lyric, or something, a great story, there's a line that stands out, or words that stand out, that make you stand up and take notice. And so just like we poured over the words, now we go one step higher and pay more attention to the lines in the books that we're reading. So let's let's begin and talk about the golden lines. So this is example. This is my door again. And so this is the example again about golden lines. When you discover a line that makes you stop and take notice, note it in your Reader's Writer's Notebook. Some teacher tips. If you look on the left side of this page, you saw the lines. Now on the right side, on the left side, you saw the words. Now on the right side, you see lines. Again, I post a minimum line count. I say they should collect one line every 2 days, even if they have more than the minimum word count, and include the line, author, and page number. By line, I really do mean a sentence. And so what I don't want is copying paragraphs of lines. I really want them to focus on the different lines that matter to them in the book. And they'll ask me, well, which lines? And I'll say, you'll know because it will almost jump off the page at you. It will be flashing, or it'll seem golden to you. And so that's how you'll know. And so I leave it open to this inquiry, to this idea of you'll know when it's a golden line, because then you write it down. So here we are in this stage one of just collecting. The culling of these lines isn't as much because the collecting isn't as much. So the lines every day, every other day, every 2 days, and even when you'll stop and have kids do the next part, this focusing part, it might be a couple more weeks because it takes a little bit longer to get to 10 golden lines written in a notebook, and maybe 10, and then you cut down a few. So it's a little bit slower process, but that's okay because it's more words. It's just these lines, and they're going to do some different work with it. So let me see. Notice I don't say I say so. So this is an example of close up about what a note card looks like. And what you'll see is that the student has written down which golden line it is. She's copied a line from her book. She's quoted it, because now it's the quick talk about kind of citing text. And so she's quoted a line from the text. She cited her source. And so there's a conference into the importance of citing the source. And then within the line, she's focused on words or phrases that jump out at her and give her more and make her stand up and take notice. So that's the sharing part of this. And then again, display those lines, please. You should, when they have these cards, they put them on the door. And then let's say once they have 2 cards on the door or 3 cards on the door, they take 1 card back off the door, and that becomes their focus. And so really, again, majority of these lines are meant to share, and majority of these lines are meant for them to share these books with other people and share these great lines with other people. And they're just going to focus on just a few of them, just 1 line out of 3 or 1 line out of 4 that are on that, and the rest stay on the door, shared with other people in the class, other people in all of your classes in the hallway for them to see. So there's that so again, Joseph. There. This is the deep study, or the close reading, to borrow a phrase from my mentor and hero. So this is a close reading of the line, and they focus on it as a reader. So really take what they're taking to heart, and then think of like a writer, what they kind of put in their head, and then how can they use it and try it. So all this leads to really this line being a mentor for them. So again, as from a reader to writer to how can they make it work for them, and then trying it out. And I'm going to walk you through an example now, and this is from the book that I'm reading, Hello Universe. I'm sure many of you are reading it as well. And this year's Newbery Award-winning book. So this is my line. It seemed like more ice cream would cost more money, but apparently that's not how the world of ice cream worked. And so there are lots of ways to get into this, but what I just did was I had the card, I put it on my projector, and just walk them through what I'm going to walk you through now, of how I thought about this line and how it was from my heart and to my head and how I was going to use it. And then we did it. And you'll see the joke in here. It's not like a funny haha joke. I got like 1 kid that laughed out of 4, but that's more than none. So let me like right now. So let me show you how that worked. There are different parts to it, and I'm just showing you that there are really 6 different things that the student does on this golden line. And I'm going to go back and forth between these 2. So the number 1 is they write the name and number on the golden line card. You see, so I chose didn't, but we're in middle school and sometimes people forget things. Number 2, there's quotation marks at the beginning and end of the line. Majority of the quote is in one color. There's emphasis words and phrases in the second color, internal, external punctuation in the third color, and the title, author, and page of the line. And what my hope is here, that it gets them mindful of the punctuation in the sentence. It gets them thinking about, well, what words, how would I read this line? How do these words matter to me? How do they jump out at me? So students would ask me, well, Mr. Teague, what words do I write down? And I get to be real cryptic and teachery and say, oh, you'll know. When the word comes to you, you'll know. And they walk away and go, okay, whatever. But they do. And they choose the words. And after one line, usually, students are focused on, when I read out loud, this word mattered or this word meant something to me. So that's how that works. And so I'm just going to go back and forth real quick. This is the 6 things. This is them on the card. These are the 6 things. These are them on the card. So then I have them focus, and this was mine. And so I had them, and these were the prompts. These were really the 4 things they did. Excuse me. As a reader, I chose this line because, and I said it was true. More expensive things are sometimes really small. When the bigger, more version is cheaper, quality usually equals more money. And then talk about how you go to the supermarket and ice cream, usually the expensive ice cream is really really small portion of expensive ice cream. And the not quality ice cream, which just means it's worse, but the lower quality ice cream is usually cheaper. And so I think, well, that should be how it works. Usually the more something, would cost more money. And that was the joke that some students thought was funny, and some thought was not. So I'm just going to keep it moving right through that. The next part is I focused on certain words. So I focused on the word more ice cream, more money, world of ice cream, because. Then as a writer, I noticed, and then here, so I can use this in my own writing, and then a section to try it out. And the try it out is really where we hope to transfer this line, and they become something they use in their own writing. So I focused on the words more money, more ice cream, world of ice cream, because I liked repetition in the first pattern. It was fun, quote unquote, to read out loud. It was funny to think about there being these truths or rules or something as small or simple as ice cream. As a writer, I noticed there was no dialogue. And what I said to them was that dialogue has its own rules and dialogue has its own way of thinking. So be mindful of the dialogue that's in the book and being mindful of how the author structures dialogue. It usually gets different focus than just the regular prose that they're writing. And often because, and I'll say this now, that a lot of times, writers may break the rules that we teach them. And writers have editors and writers have a team of people that are helping them construct these things. And the real intent of the grammar, to borrow Kate Roberts again, is give them the power to say what they want to say. And so sometimes paying attention to the spirit of the law is more important than the actual law. In writing, not maybe in general life, but in writing for sure. And so I want them mindful of where there's dialogue, especially thinking about if there's a break in from the grammar rules that they know, that's why. Okay, so that's why I have there's no dialogue. And then I say, well, there's a comma about halfway through the sentence. And I'll put that line up for you again. And I said that I think it's a compound sentence. I like to keep it vague. So I think there is this line. I'm not really sure because it really is inquiry. And me as a teacher can then teach into, oh yeah, there's that structure here. Or you know about that framework of how this line works there. But I'm not sure that why there isn't a comma after apparently. And I'll just go back to my line again. There's my line. But apparently, comma, you could say that's not how the world of ice cream works. And so I just leave it open to that because I want them to just be thinking about how they can use this as a mentor and not necessarily, this sentence is wrong because, or this sentence is right because. But there is a place for that. Okay. Here we are. Then I do the try it out part. And this is my trying it out line. It seemed like more size would mean more weight, but apparently that's not how the world of space stuff worked. Again, I tend to be funny, but the point is that I took this line, I tried to use the repetition, I tried to talk about a rule or truth, and I wrote it on the fly right in front of them. In fact, I had a student choose the category that I was going to make my line from, excuse me, and that's when I made this in front of them. And so the idea is then that after all of this, that a student has, after all this, let me say it again, a student has chosen all these lines, they focus on some lines that are important to them, they have done some thinking from their heart about what the line means to them. They have talked about then as a writer, and then they've tried it out. And one way that you can, this can extend this, or you can simplify it, is students can talk about illusions, or students can talk about symbolism, or students can talk about a contrast between the character. I had one student talk about how the line made her respect a character more. And so it can be as simple as I like the way it was built, or I thought it was funny, or as meaningful, or as higher level, like the better word, some as higher level as, I liked how this line alluded to something else, or how the line showed how the character had made this big change in their life. And so that can be a way, and as this cycles and ramps up and gets more and more complex, that students can dig deeper and deeper into what the line really means to them, and how that can work. So, he said, again, back to, okay, that's great, Joseph, but how are you going to assess all this? And so here it is, the demands of commands of convention and grammar usage when writing, and figurative language, word relationships, and nuances and word meaning. So really, I like how the writer used figurative language. I liked how they used this phrase and that phrase, or I liked how the word was shaded this way to make me feel this way. And so back here to the rubric, again, I'm assuming positive intent. I'm assuming they're curious about these lines. I'm assuming that they are curious, and they are naturally curious. And so if I expect them to be curious, expect them to want to learn about these words, expect them to be curious about the lines, and expect them to then transfer and use these words and use these lines in their own work. Okay, so last but not least is what could go wrong, not what could go wrong, coaching opportunities. And that really is just, let's say the student didn't write down, oh, you can see me. Let's say the student didn't write down and don't have any lines in their book. That can be a way to let's sit together and talk about the line. Or they didn't quite follow the structure of the sentence. It wasn't a true mentor for them. Well, that's a way to look at the mentor line and look at your line and see, were you paying attention to the spirit of what the line was trying to do? Maybe your focus was more the meaning of it than the actual building structure of it. So that could be a mini lesson in it. The general thinking is another coaching opportunity from, oh, it was good. And then usually a couple cycles, they get deeper into it. Again, you're assuming positive intent. So that is, in a nutshell, golden lines and golden words, and this way of paying deeper focus into the words that students are choosing from the books that they've chosen, and going into lines they've chosen. So I thank you for your time. Please hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions, or want to go over it a little more. And again, so appreciative you could have been anywhere in the world. You were here. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Joseph, thank you so much. I'm going to speak on behalf of everybody who is watching and tweeting. Thank you for sharing all these wonderful strategies that are going to elevate our instruction of vocabulary and craft for our kids. I just loved how you gave us really rich examples and step-by-step moves, so thank you for that. Everyone out there watching, if you missed any part of this, or you want to watch the whole thing or share it with other colleagues, this video is being archived, and you can access it on the EdCollab page after today. So our next session is in 15 minutes. So you have some time to get up, stretch, and get ready for session 4. Let me just give you a preview of what that looks like. All right, so here are our session 4 workshops. And if you go to our EdCollab page, you can find the YouTube links to watch all of these any of these amazing sessions. So again, thank you for joining us today. Joseph, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful work, and we'll see you all later. Thank you.